Well, Christina, I don't know how the hell a couple of boring bankers are going to beat that previous presentation, but we'll try and keep you engaged today.
You know, Gavin, wiggle your toes. If wiggle your toes,
exactly.
you'll feel better.
Exactly. There's been a lot of discussion over the last couple of days about digital experience, analytics, machine learning, but the fundamental foundation to make that perform is data. So we're here today to give you a little bit of an update on data and the implications that's having on our organisation, Group and Business Services. My name's Gavin Whyte. I head up Data and Reporting Services, and I also act as the Chief Data and Analytics Officer for GBS.
Thanks. And I am Christina Norrbring, and I head up the part of GBS called Business Services, where we actually do exactly just that. We handle the various business flows, the customer flows, actually the customer money flows. And that has a wide range from trading in capital markets to FX to payments to funds and equities and the ever-increasing volumes of authority inquiries of various forms. And we will talk about data today. But, as someone, I think, yesterday in the panel discussion said, how you do things and what you do is very often related to who you are. So that's why we will take the liberty of spending just a couple of minutes sort of presenting who we are at SEB and at GBS and our journey, so you can position the way we have dealt with things related to who we are. Right. We are SEB, meaning Skandinaviska Enskilda Banken, founded more than 160 years ago. And actually, our biggest owners and stakeholders, as of today, is the ancestors of the guy who originally founded us, which gives us an incredibly long-term thinking in most things, which is truly amazing. And if you work with for companies that are a bit more sort of quarterly run, you really appreciate this. So being around for a long time, and what binds us all together is actually our purpose that we take quite seriously.
Yes, we do.
And our purpose is to exist, to positively shape the future with responsible advice and capital today and for generations to come. We are a Northern European bank, as you can see from the map, head office in Stockholm, where we were also founded. As our big corporations have moved globally to do business, so have we. So as you can also see, we are present with offices and hubs in most financial centers around the globe. There are 17,000 of us. We have around a bit more than 3,000 large corps and financial institutions, almost 300,000 small and medium enterprises, and about 1.5 million private individuals. That's sort of who we are on overall level. So what about us, Gavin and me mainly, who make up the global business services? A few others, but I think we are like 85% of it or something like that together. We are a bit more, I think now almost 2,500 people. Our biggest hub is in Riga, that Candy said. We opened a brand new office in May, which is really amazing in many ways. And the next biggest one is Vilnius in Lithuania, and after that Stockholm and Singapore. So that's where we are present. And if you look at our journey, I think it's totally similar to everyone else in this room's GBS journey. You know, a decision was taken, in our case, like 2005, to centralize functions together, to try to not to do everything in several instances and streamline processes and get a bit more segregation of duties. Being a bank, that's really important. So then there was an establishment. Riga was the first one out, payment processing. And of course, for the first few years, establishment, strong process improvement focus, you know, putting a process framework in place and getting all that stuff together. Next phase was quite internally focused. Quality risk, of course. Volume growth, we saw huge growth in volume and grew with Vilnius as an example. Automation in the form of what we call tactical automation, robotics, which is, the way we look at it at least, smart solutions for doing manual work much faster. And that was introduced. But now we have entered our third phase, which we call smart transformation. And for us, this is a really, really huge step, equally huge as the one in 2005 when SEB decided to put up a global services as such, or a shared services, I think it was called at the time. And, you know, for the first two periods, we could sort of be in control ourselves. We could manage our processes, we could streamline, we could put in robots, and we could deliver fantastic efficiency gains every year to the bank, probably spoiling SEB a bit, what we annually did deliver. Now, in this third phase, we can absolutely not control this ourselves. We now need, as most of you probably also are doing, move into true automation, designing the processes for an automated handling with manual handling as little as possible in moments that matter, we call it with our euphemism. But that is something that we need to do cross-bank together with our business partners across the entire bank, since we serve all markets, all customer segments, all products, etc., and SEB itself. We need to do that together. And that is not so easy as when you're in control yourself. We went to the business and said, hey guys, now we need to automate, being, you know, totally convinced that everyone would see the light. And they did not. You know, okay, great, yeah, buy some more robots, please fix. So we went back and, no, we mean true automation, you know, designing for no hands, etc. Yeah, true, please fix. And then we went back again and really thought, okay, maybe we are totally introverts here. What do we actually mean, and what is the actual value? And then we sort of realized, you know, looking at this from an outside perspective, the real value lies, of course, in the customer journey and the customer experience. Nowadays, in a digitized world, at least for providing business services as we do, customers totally expect a smooth and seamless experience with the ability to get advice, human advice, when you need to. But looking at it this way and say that, okay, and this requires automation. You cannot digitize the customer journey unless you automate. Let's call it that. So then we finally actually got our seat at the table. So great. But we don't, you know, it's not just having a seat at the table. You want to impact the agenda as well to get things done. There will be no automation done because we're at the table. So what we are sort of struggling with and experimenting with now is trying to get into the agenda for real. And we will get back to that. But obviously, as I'm sure all of you know already, is that there is one big, great enabler to get into the agenda. It's almost like a magic wand, not quite, but a bit like it. And that is, of course, data. Gavin.
Thank you, Christina. By 2030, SEB's strategy is to become a fully data-driven bank. And that is having implications on the entire organisation, including ourselves. Data has actually been a core component of our entire process excellence journey over the last 15, 16 years. But we've tended to use it, and we've tended to look at process excellence wearing our process goggles. So we're now giving data a little bit of a new focus, and we're really looking at how data is truly an asset, but an asset that we really need to look after, and we need to be really clever on how we use it. Christina's already talked a little bit about the robotics and so forth. We like to call that the Band-Aid approach. I mean, like we've heard from many presenters over the last couple of days, we are also moving into the AI, the machine learning. But it's not going to perform unless we are in control of our data. So those two bullet points are very interconnected with each other. We also see that in the future, our role will change. We will move from performing and pushing processes to monitoring and exception handling and advising. So that's actually having an impact on our view of the type of competence and the type of skill sets that we're going to need in the future. So that's also something that we're addressing. Here's a little bit about us in numbers, and this is about group and business services, the amount of transactions we're pumping through, a little bit of the progress. We've made a first step on AI. We've actually made more progress than we show here. This slide was done a wee while ago, but Christina will give more of an update. But what I'd really like to highlight is that historically, and you were talking about the challenges earlier, Christina, about getting the business to support us with automation. Since the banking crisis, we've been under a huge amount of pressure from the regulators, bringing new regulations onto us with strict deadlines. That has taken away capacity and focus to work on this. And actually, because we have hard deadlines, quite often it hasn't been possible to implement new fully automated processes. So we've had to do workarounds or implement manual work. So it's had a negative impact on our overall strategy. And for many years, data has been the root cause of quite a lot of inefficiencies in our processes. But when we try to get those issues prioritized, the business weren't so interested. But now it really has changed. The regulators are all over us about our data quality management processes, and the business themselves, having a look at the success of the digital experience companies, are seeing the power of data for them in doing business. So with this big focus across the entire organisation, it's actually really good news for us, because the things that we've been wanting to drive from a data perspective is now actually a core focus area for the entire organisation. And as a consequence of that, actually, we have a Chief Data and Analytics. We like the word chief. We put that all across the whole organisation. But we have a Chief Data and Analytics Officer across SEB, and they are driving a major transformation on how we package our data, how we manage our data, and how we consume our data. And they are also giving us support when it comes to tooling, and some support when it comes to getting some insights from the data. But in Group and Business Services, we also have focusing on 3 areas. The first one is we need to be good custodians of the data when it comes into our organisation and it's going through the processes that we are responsible for. So we are incorporating good data quality management frameworks and techniques and implementing data roles. Part of that is new roles, but we also feel it's about upskilling our existing roles and incorporating data focus with that. We've been really successful in securing and monitoring the quality of data when it comes into our processes, the quality of the data when it leaves us, and we have built some pretty complex and pretty impressive data quality dashboards that have been very, very much fundamental in us identifying root causes where data has actually been creating a lot of inefficiencies. But it's not just about data quality, and especially about the transaction data. I mean, Christina, we create a lot of data in our processes ourselves. What about that?
So we do. And, it took some time before we realized that this was kind of a gold mine of information and data that we were sitting on ourselves and could be actually in control again, because then it's a bit easier. Because entire bank is of course, obsessed kind of and interested in business data, you know, the customers' products and whatever risk factors and whatever. But there is obviously, for most of you, as a banker, it's not always that obvious, a lot of really interesting insights you can draw from using the process data, the kind of the logistics data within the processes. And here is where our sort of legacy and history kicks in a bit. We are bankers. And you know, when banking sort of early days, banking was done in an office over a counter. Behind the curtains, and I mean literally, physically, curtains, that was the back office, sort of sorting things out and making it happen, what the front counter had sort of sold. And that's where that was called then, eventually, the back office. The term back office hasn't been used for some years now, but still, in our sort of cultural 160 plus years inheritance, it's kind of still there. So when the back office people, now called business services, say, hey, we are part of the customer journey, and we have some great insights, and let's talk automation and digitizing of our customer offering, we are very often met with, what? And that has to do with our history. We have brilliant people. They are financial wizards, absolutely fantastic. But we are not true digital natives, as in fintechs, obviously. And most banks, not just SEB, most banks have been great at designing fantastic customer interfaces in the apps or whatever. But then, when kind of the deal is done and you as a customer have onboarded, even if you're corporate, we haven't put that much effort into the rest of the customer journey. And in a digital world, there is no such thing as a front and a back. There is just the journey, or process, or flow, or whatever you want to call it. And that's what we have to deal with when we see these great things that we can do for customer benefit, but also for great efficiencies within ourselves. But what we found out is that when we can use our process data and really get into that to make a case and state to the business, then we are starting to talk about being on the agenda, and that it's actually part of the bank's all-in-all strategic transformation towards being a data-driven bank in 2030. It doesn't happen every day, but it does happen from time to time.
And I mentioned earlier about the new competence and skill sets, and empower people with data skills. It means a few things. One is we think that a lot of our people are relevant for the future. We just need to upgrade or incorporate data skills within. There are some roles which are new. And that actually makes it really important for us to be really clear to our talents what type of competence we need in the future, so that we can work together with them on development plans that can actually keep them relevant as we go through this transformation. And this is actually impacting all of our staff, isn't it?
Yes, definitely. And you know, I think we are fortunate enough to have a great thing in SEB called a digital university called SEB Campus, where we offer lots of remote trainings. And we do this in cooperation with MIT and Harvard and London Business School or whatever. So they are really, really great trainings. And we've taken quite a lot of effort into putting learning paths for various roles within our GBS staff, to feel that when you work for us, you also grow with us. And we also very much want everyone to feel that if you work for us, you also enhance your CV. So you can sort of rest assured in your competence development, staying with GBS for a while. So we use that a lot, and we put a great deal of faith in these learning paths. and really make them kind of part of your yearly PDDs, etc., etc. Because we do think that everyone needs to have some kind of literacy. Because Gavin said, we have worked with data for years, but we just didn't have these goggles on, so we didn't get it. But when you get it, you start to pay a bit more attention. And since we have so many great, young, extremely well-educated people in our staff, they will absolutely see things and come up with ideas that otherwise would have been missed. So that's a real, we usually say people at the core of everything, but it's really, really true when it comes to this. And I have every faith in our 2,500 persons.
And I think it's actually, as you said, our talented staff are very, very proactive, so sometimes they're even a wee bit ahead of us, so we have to try to catch up. And just to wrap up then, data is everything almost. For a financial institution, capital is the raw material that we use to build our products. But the business is starting to add a new ingredient. They're using data as well to develop new products that will improve customer experience. And it's the same for us. We will continue doing what we are doing, but we are incorporating good and best practice data management techniques and leveraging data more going forward. The way I like to put it is everything that we have been doing is still relevant, but data is relevant in everything that we do. And I've talked a lot about claiming our seat at the table and putting things on the agenda. And that really leverage on the data that the business does not automatically focus on. That also reflects on ourselves, of course, and our ability to shape up and have the guts to really bring the interesting and value-providing stuff on the agenda. And we do a lot of experiments to make this happen, maybe too many and too scattered, but we haven't quite found, the silver bullet between these yet. They are starting to emerge, I think, so then we will focus a bit more. But a few examples is obviously a lot of machine learning and pattern recognition, word recognition, because of these enormous amounts of free text in various forms that we get all the time. That is one sort of simple but obvious thing. We have also put robots into the flows themselves to detect where there's a mishap or a mishandling happening, what was actually happening before that, so we can take some predictive action and maybe find, maybe it's at the sales desk actually where it all starts. Never happened before to have these discussions. And we are also, a bank is about capital and I would say risk. We have risk models for everything and a great deal of really brilliant quants doing amazingly complicated calculations. But we are also found that putting some of the process data into the risk models actually enhances them a lot. So that might be a little bit of a silver bullet that we can use. So we do experiments all the time, and we have some AI experiments when it comes to putting process data into the valuation of various things in our asset portfolios, etc., etc. So we do experiment a lot. It's starting to show which fields are probably the best one to use to reach what we do want to reach, and that's a great customer experience and an efficient handling by ourselves. And I think there, Christina, that, because here we say potential and data the business doesn't focus on. And yeah, the business, they are really focused on the core, customer, product, transaction. We create a lot of other processes that you've been talking about, but what I've been talking about around making sure that we're managing that data in the correct way, it goes the same for us for the data that we're creating as well. So if we are to be successful with tools, techniques such as process mining, for instance, and you start going off and looking at incident logs, it's really important we're using the same taxonomy and that we are properly securing the maintenance of the data in those solutions as well, not just the customer-focused ones. Sorry, I interrupted you there,
no,
but I just thought I would add that point.
And again, comes the legacy, I think. For many of you who might work for manufacturing companies, much of these things might sound very basic, but we are bankers, we have a banking culture. And flows and logistics and, measuring various things in the flow, that does not come natural for us. That's something that we need to prove the value of before it sort of gets done.
Exactly.
So who we are really impacts how to take things on, we've learned.
Yep. And I think we were a wee bit worried that we were going to run out of time, but I think we're actually pretty much there.
Yeah.
So we hope that gives you a little bit of an insight. We haven't gone into more, there's a lot more detail we could go into, but we thought we'd just give you a little bit of an overview. And I do think it's really important that in our organisation at least, we are really focusing on, and I think there are big implications for GBS. Sometimes we have to take on what can be perceived as the boring stuff. Yeah? It's really cool to talk about AI, digital experience, but somebody's got to look after the core. So all of you, please don't forget the importance of data in the future world and our role that we play in securing that that is fit for purpose.
Said the CDO.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Absolutely, data is critical to the business and certainly to straight-through processing. A couple of questions I think we've just got time for. The interplay between process, tech and data is critical. How is the balance between the three working in SEB?
Integrate the three. Sorry, could you
Yes,
repeat?
how is the balance between the three working, the interplay of process, tech and data?
Well, actually, one of the things that's really, we have turned into we have transitioned into being a fully agile organisation. So we have a domain structure where the business, tech, and GBS are all working together. And basically, we pull all of those common facets in and have one common discussion. And that's actually been a fantastic step forward.
So there is an agile arena where we are meeting, and then we're not GBS, but we are actually business or services representatives. It's called operations at that table. And that is great. But we have some place to go in some of the arenas called domains as of yet. Sometimes we sort of tend to forget about the business flow and we totally focus about the technical components or the various business functionality, and we forget what binds it together, which is actually the customer flow. Exactly. So we have pieces in place since a few years, but I think we do have to step up a bit to get the real value out of it.
Yeah, I think, we have to be a wee bit humble. We're not, it says becoming masters of data. We're not masters of data yet, but we're setting up the mechanisms to help accelerate that.
Something I get asked a lot around ownership, it's more around the organizational structure. So the question here is, where does IT sit in SEB versus business services and data management?
Well, IT, or technology as we call it, they are our siblings, you could say. We have the business divisions, large corps, financial institutions, privates and whatever. And then we have group and business services, which is us and a bit more. And then we have technology. And then we have group staff functions. So we are our siblings.
Yeah, but one thing that has been implemented is a data management framework. So we actually have data owners. Those data owners are in the business, and they are then supported by data area councils, we have formalised the roles of data owner, data stewards, data curators. And all of us from across the different organisations have different roles. We have data area councils that are driving the data roadmaps for those areas. So it's kind of an agile. But one of the challenges we started off with the data area councils, and then we have the domains for development, and we realised that actually they were it was the same concept and duplicating. So now we're trying to see how we integrate them together.
There was a lot of talk yesterday about the importance of being really integrated, and I can realize that myself. I've been with business services for a couple of years. Before that, I was quite a lot of years within technology, heading up all the applications. And if we had worked closer together, I can see that we would have made progress faster than we do. So I can absolutely see that.
Yeah.
Brilliant, thank you. So we'll get to the rest of the questions on here, on the Slido. But we've run out of time, so for now, thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.